I came across a Lewis Howes clip on TikTok the other day talking about vulnerability being strength and some such nonsense. I had no idea that this was a big topic. Made a few posts about it. Most of the people in my comment section were in agreement that this was a silly idea. There was, however, a small handful of men and a couple of women that have so embraced the idea that for a man to be quote unquote strong, he needs to be vulnerable. Well, even on the face of it, this is Orwellian doublespeak. To be vulnerable is to be easily hurt or easily harmed. There's nothing strong about that. You can go to a thesaurus, thesaurus.com, type in vulnerable. What do you get? You get synonyms that all relate some image of weakness. Defenseless, thin-skinned, tender, sensitive. None of these evoke a masculine image, not in the traditional sense, and none of them convey any meaning of strength. So the men in my comment section, they never really put any meat on the bones as to what their argument really was, that they just kept saying that ultimate strength is weakness and to be vulnerable is to really be strong. And it honestly sounds like something out of an Orwellian dystopian kind of novel where up is down and down is up. One man in the comments even tagged one of these online life coaches or something like that. He had a bunch of followers. He came the closest to actually putting some meat on the bones of an argument, but it was still more Orwellian nonsense. Basically, he said how he's coached all these veterans and convicts and tough guys, whatever. Something about these men being able to be emotionally open with their wives and family. In logic terms, this is a straw man fallacy, right? So this guy takes something that's good, being emotionally open or intimate with your wife. And then he says that's being vulnerable. No, it's not. Not at all. They're not even in the same universe. Has nothing to do with one another. But he falsely labels, this is a straw man, he falsely labels emotional intimacy with a wife as vulnerability. Then when somebody like me comes along and says what vulnerability really is, it's weakness, he points to the good thing and says that's what you're arguing against. No, that's how straw men arguments work. He lifts something up that's not real, emotional intimacy being vulnerability, and then when you try to set the record straight as what vulnerability really is, he points to a straw man. It's simply not true. Anybody that's going to say that vulnerability is strength, there's only one or two options. They're either ignorant or they're dishonest. That's only two options. Because we can dig into this all you want. You can get a dictionary, you can get a thesaurus, you can sit and think about what these words actually mean. At the end of that, you still come out on the other side saying that vulnerability is strength. Now, what's behind all of this? That's a long topic, and I don't want to make a video that long. The short version is, let's first look at the DSM. It's the manual for the American Psychiatric Association. The DSM considers traditional masculinity a disorder. That's the biggest red flag right there. The top psychiatry association in the Western world calls traditional masculinity a disorder. What else do you need to know? And then you look in pop culture, it's in the media, it's in children's books, it's all over the place. The dad or the husband is always a buffoon. The level-headed, calm, cool woman always has to come and save the day because dad or the husband just screwed something up again. Add to this attack on masculinity in general, coming from all directions in the media, our general overall health. Half the population, men and women, are obese. Then you look at testosterone rates. Google it, I'm not just making this up. Testosterone rates over the last 40 or 50 years have plummeted. The average man in the 1940s had a testosterone level of around 800. These guys weren't going to the gym. These guys were smoking 2 packs of unfiltered cigarettes every day and drinking a 6-pack of Schlitz for dinner. They had an average level of around 800 of their testosterone. Today, they break it down a little bit more by age group, but the average guy today has a testosterone level somewhere around 300 to 500, depending on what age group you look at. This absolutely affects how a man thinks. Women understand this. Look how a mood swings just throughout the month. That's just a little bit of estrogen and progesterone and whatever else fluctuating a little bit. If a man is at 400 or 300 total testosterone, he's just an emotionally different creature than if he were healthy at 800 plus testosterone. Now, I get this in some of my other posts. Men will always say, my testosterone's fine. I say, when did you have it checked? They never had it checked. Only one guy came back and said he had it checked, and he wouldn't tell me the number. He just said it was a good range. Right. No. If you're a man in 2022, regardless of age, if you are not being very proactive to keep endocrine disruptors, the plastics, the fragrances, all the various elements in our society, a poor diet. It's a long list. If a man's not being very proactive to keep these things out of his life, he does not have a healthy testosterone. It's impossible. It should be, regardless of age, somewhere around 800. If such a person still has plastics and you go in the bathroom and they've got all this scented fragrance stuff and deodorant and shampoo and on down the line, and they're eating anything near the standard American diet, your testosterone's 500 or lower, promise you. And unless you've had your blood work done and you're taking these other steps, don't argue, don't say your testosterone's fine. Just because your man stuff still kind of works at that low level, it just isn't good. More to the point of vulnerability, strength, and masculinity, this is part of the war on masculinity. Yes, the DSM calls it a disorder. Yes, the media in general is telling us men are buffoons, the feminine way is better, masculinity is toxic, and now we have men, these life coaches, purporting to be tough veteran guys and all this other stuff, and they're out here saying vulnerability is strength. We'll leave off why that is for maybe another video, but obviously masculinity is under attack. They want you fat, dumb, and sick. Your testosterone's so low, you don't have enough of a spine to dig in your heels and resist and say, no, we're not going to do that. In order to have a compliant population that's going to accept shutdowns, that's going to accept all the stuff that comes with that, that's going to accept everything that's going on in the world right now, they have to get rid of strong men. And your testosterone's dropping. And then the mass media gets involved and says, men are buffoons. The feminine way is better. Then we even have these influencers, this House guy, whatever his name was, saying same thing. To be vulnerable is to be strong. It's a huge propaganda machine, and there are some men listening to it. Knowing that a man in 2022 that is not being very proactive to avoid the things that lowers testosterone, it's guaranteed these guys have a testosterone level around 300 or 400 at the most. And they've already done the blue pill absorption of all the propaganda and how masculinity is toxic. So they're just rolling with it. And they're convinced the ultimate strength is weakness, and to be vulnerable is to be strong. They're turned into defective women, basically.